Question 5 on videotape, and then Tim Hudak gets the first answer, debating this one-on-one with Andrea Horwath. Roll tape, please.
My name is Mohammed Zaman, and I live in Ottawa. Post-secondary education is one of the most important milestones in a person's life. This year, close to 90,000 undergraduate students are heading towards this path despite the enormous financial commitment required. Many students find it difficult to pay for the cost of their education, never mind their cost of living. My question to the leaders tonight is, what will your party do to help post-secondary students throughout this critical but expensive academic endeavor?
Tim Hudak, you're up first.
Well, thank you for the question, Mohammed. You know, there's no doubt that post-secondary education is the great equalizer in our society. It helped my dad, who is a son of immigrants, escape a low-income family. He became a high school principal in the Catholic system. My mom came from a very modest background as well and became a teacher. And therefore, I came from the middle class. We need to make sure that every student who has the grades to qualify can get post-secondary education, because you know, a university degree, a college diploma, a trade will be the ticket to a good job in the middle class. And the second thing I'll say, Mohammed, we need to make sure there are good jobs out there when you graduate. So I'm hearing from young people all across the province that the jobs just aren't there.
Andrea Horwath.
Well, Mohammed, I'm really happy that this question has come up. I was just in Ottawa not too long ago and had a very strange thing happen to me. I was about to get into my OPP vehicle, and this young woman approached me on the street. I was quite surprised, and she gave me a big hug, and she said, "Thank you." And I said, well, what for? And she said, well, I'm a part-time student. And she said, in your plan to freeze tuition fees and to take the interest, the Ontario interest off the OSAP loan is going to make a big difference for me. As a part-time student, freezing those tuition fees is going to make a difference in terms of how much I'm going to be paying to get my education, because I can't afford to go full-time. I have to work and go part-time, so that freeze is going to make a big difference, and taking the interest off is going to mean that I'm not going to be paying as much over time. New Democrats have been listening to students. Right now, we have the highest undergraduate student debt in all of Canada. We have the second highest debt for graduate students. This is not a province that puts students first. In fact, we actually have the least per capita investment in post-secondary education. That's not the way that students are going to earn their degrees in a way that doesn't leave them with debts the size of mortgages when they graduate. We are very committed to making sure that post-secondary education is achievable for more people, and that it's not a financial barrier.
Here's another thing, Mohammed, we're going to do to help out young people trying to get into post-secondary education. You know, so many middle-class families are being squeezed out altogether. Under the current system with Mr. McGuinty, if you're $60,000 to $70,000 in income, they say you're too rich and your parents are too well off and you don't get any assistance. I think that's wrong. In fact, I'm going to increase assistance through OSAP to help more and more middle-class families. Now, it's not a grant, it's a loan. You have to pay it back, but it opens up access. And let me tell you how I'm going to pay for it as well. In a time that students are facing big debts and a tough job market, Dalton McGuinty chose to create a $30 million foreign scholarship program. $40,000 scholarships only for foreign students. So, Mohammed, if you applied for that, you had an Ontario driver's license, you'd be disqualified. I think that's wrong. I'll put Ontario's best and brightest first. I'll cancel that program and put it towards OSAP for Ontario families.
But the problem is, Mr. Hudak, that encouraging people to take more and more and more debt load on doesn't address Mohammed's issue, which is tuition fees are already too expensive. Freezing tuition fees will stop that climb. And instead of a rebate program which Mr. McGuinty favors, we're going to freeze fees. That means everybody is able to gain from having lower tuition fees over time. I think that students need a break. I know that they need some hope for the future, and I know that there are lots of people in my own riding who are actually choosing not to go to post-secondary because the debt load is daunting. And so our plan is one that responds very much to what students like you, Mohammed, have said, which is that something needs to be done to reduce the amount of debt that students are facing, to help give them a bit of a break, and to make sure that jobs are there for them when they graduate. And that's the other part of our plan. We're going to reward the companies that create jobs for everyone, for new Canadians, parents, for students, for people who have lost their jobs in the economy. These are the kinds of priorities that will help students not only with their debt loads, but to get jobs as well when they graduate.
That's the end of the one-on-one here. We can now open it up to all three. Mr. McGuinty, you want to come in?
Ms. Horwath, just so we're clear, is offering a freeze. Our plan calls for a 30% reduction for families with incomes of $160,000 or less. Again, that's $1,600 off university tuition, $730 off college. Mr. Hudak is suddenly interested in education. Now, it may be that at some point in time along the way, and I've been at many question periods with Mr. Hudak, that he asked me a question about education, but I can't recall a single one. We've got a great record here in Ontario when it comes to post-secondary education. We've created 200,000 more spaces. Our plan now calls for 60,000 more. We're going to build 3 new, exciting, innovative undergraduate university campuses. If you compare Ontario to the rest of Canada, the enrollment in Ontario universities and colleges has gone up since 2003 by 26%. That's twice the pace it's gone up in the rest of the country. So families are making heroic measures, making heroic efforts in order to get young people into college and university. That's why we're going to help them with our 30% tuition reduction.
Mr. Hudak.
Dalton, you know that's not true. I've asked you many questions about education. One in particular was why at a time that the students are facing significant debt, they're having trouble finding a good job in Ontario today, that you would choose to spend $30 million on a foreign scholarship program that would tell to young men and women here in the province of Ontario they need not apply simply because they're Ontario residents. I disagree, and I'll put that money into OSAP assistance for families instead. And here's another difference between myself and my 2 opponents. We're going to focus on modernizing our trades in the province. We're going to create 200,000 more skilled trades positions. If you want to be an electrician, a carpenter, a welder, a plumber, right now you're heading down the road to Saskatchewan, to Alberta, because Dalton McGuinty is clinging to an old 1970s-based apprenticeship system. We'll help the colleges identify young apprentices, put them in jobs, and create 200,000 more skilled trade positions.
Ms. Horwath.
So Mr. Hudak simply favors giving more loans out and increasing student debt. Mr. McGuinty says that he's going to allow tuition fees to continue to climb, and so that after a couple of years, that 30% is going to be wiped out anyways. New Democrats think both of these are the wrong ways to go. We need to make sure that students in Ontario are able to afford a post-secondary education, and you can only do that over time by freezing tuition fees and making sure that opportunities are there for all students. That's our commitment. That's the kind of thing that changes the way these two people are talking and puts students first in Ontario.
Mr. McGuinty.
I just want to come back to something that Mr. Hudak referenced. He says he doesn't believe that we should provide any scholarship support to foreign students. The fact of the matter is that foreign students who are coming to Ontario today are spending $1 billion annually. They're helping subsidize university and college education for all Ontarians. He says he doesn't like Samsung in part because it's a foreign multinational. During the course of the campaign, he said that he called Canadian citizens foreigners.
Oh, hold on
I've got a different approach.
No, Dalton, you know that's not. You know that's not at all true.
I think it's really important for us here in Ontario to embrace globalization and to understand who we are. We're together. We're in this. We're tight. We've found success over the course of our history by moving forward together. So I just know I'm not comfortable. I've got to tell you, I'm not comfortable.
Well, hold on a second. No, let's hold on a second here.
Foreign
the reality
students,
was.
okay, foreign multinationals, and foreigners.
Point made. Let's go.
Here's the reality, and I know you want to say anything to not talk about your record in lost jobs, your record in raising taxes on families. The reality was, I never said that. The reality is you brought in an affirmative action subsidy of $10,000. Initially, your campaign chairman, the president of the Liberal Party, your finance minister said that was to attract foreign workers. Then you backtracked and you said, well, it's for people who have lived in Ontario for 5 years or less. Here's where I stand.
We're talking
the
about
Canadian value
citizens.
that it doesn't matter how long you've lived in Ontario, whether it's 6 months, 6 years, 20 years, or for your entire life. We should all be treated equally. An equal chance at a job based on how hard you want to work, your skills and your experience. Not a $10,000 affirmative action check for a select few. Give everybody a chance to compete. And the Premier's job, with all due respect to Mr. McGuinty, is to create jobs for everyone, to move our economy forward so we all have a good shot at a good job, not a special $10,000 handout.
Ms. Horwath.
And I think when the tenor of the discussion sinks to this level, we lose sight of what Mohammed was talking about. And that's, I think, the most unfortunate thing that I've seen in this campaign so far is the hurling of accusations and insults when we should be focusing on how we make Ontario a better place, where people come first, where students come first, where jobs come first. And I'm saying to Mohammed and to all of the other students who I've talked to over the years who have said to me, we have to get a handle on tuition fees. Ontario should not be 10th out of 10 when it comes to per capita investment. We shouldn't have the highest undergraduate debt load. We shouldn't have the highest, second highest graduate costs. That is the wrong way for the province to go. So if you want the kind of change that puts us on it in a different direction, choose New Democrats, because we believe students should come first.
Mr. McGuinty.
Well, just to, again, relate a few facts. When it comes to post-secondary education in Ontario, as I mentioned a moment ago, we've got the highest growth that's been experienced across the country. But in addition to that, we now have the lowest student loan default rate ever recorded in Ontario. We brought back grants. Ms. Horwath's party, when they were in power, they eliminated grants. We've also capped student indebtedness at $7,300 per year. That means that if you borrow money from OSAP, doesn't matter how much you borrow, you're not going to owe more than $7,300 every year. So we've done a lot to ensure that there's more affordability and more accessibility. You know, this is personal to me. My grandmother was married at the age of 16. She didn't even go to high school. The reason that I'm standing here this evening as Premier of the greatest province in the best country in the world is because of educational opportunity. That's why I'm so committed to ensuring that all our young people have equal opportunity to an affordable, good quality Ontario post-secondary education.
The bottom line for Mohammed, for students across our province. There's no doubt it's expensive in the post-secondary system. That's why I'm going to increase access to OSAP to help make sure that we all have that opportunity, that great equalizer that's a degree, a diploma, or a trade. Here's the difference between the Ontario PCs and our Change Book plan and my opponents. We have an unrelenting focus on job creation, to make Ontario the best place in Canada when you graduate to get a job. And you know what, Mohammed? I've been there. I remember coming out to the economy with my university degree. I was stacking beer at the duty-free store. It was a job, I was paying the bills, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I will fight each and every day for our young people like yourself, Mohammed, to have a good job, to keep that great talent here in Ontario.
Okay, leaders, that is the end of the fifth question.